It is the Jesse Kelly Show, final hour of the Jesse Kelly Show on a wondrous, wondrous Monday. We're going to talk more about them using power and how things are slowly turning around here. Apparently, Gen Z finds the real world daunting. Dearborn residents, that Muslim call to prayer is not landing well. All that, emails, so much more coming up in the final hour of the Jesse Kelly Show. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I know there have been 8 million controversies between when this incident happened and now. And maybe you didn't even hear about this incident when this incident happened, but allow me to set it up for you. In Manhattan, there was a pro-life activist there. A woman gets angry that she's being pro-life, and she sucker punches the pro-lifer. This is not a story I heard about secondhand. There's video of it. I cannot stress that this entire encounter, you can go watch it on video. If you'd like to know where the woman who has been accused of second-degree assault, her name is Brianna J. Rivers. Brianna J. Rivers. Just look that up. You can go look at the video of this animal sucker punching a pro-life activist. It's on videotape. Okay? Now, headline is New York City woman who sucker punched pro-life activist won't be prosecuted as Manhattan DA Bragg, that'd be Alvin Bragg, as Bragg's office admits to botching the case. That's from the New York Post. They didn't botch the case. They didn't botch the case. They're not soft on crime. They didn't trip and fall and lose the files they needed and screw this up. Everything for a communist is looked at. Friends versus enemies. And he only holds whatever power he holds to reward his friends and punish his enemies. A pro-life activist is the enemy of a communist DA like Alvin Bragg. Somebody who would assault this activist is looked at as a friend of communist DA Alvin Bragg. And Alvin Bragg views his role as DA in part to protect the animal who's punching his enemy. That's why they do what they do. I'm going to play something for you. This is his daughter, Logan, was murdered, and it was freaking horrible. And he gave some testimony. I want you to listen to this, and I want you to please understand if you don't already. They're not soft on crime. They want these things to happen. That's why they do what they do.
When I tell you this story, think about your kids. Think about your child coming home from a night out with their friends, laying down, going to sleep, feeling somebody come in the room and wake them and drag her out of bed, naked, forced on her knees with her hands over her head, begging for her life, begging for her hero, her father, me, that couldn't be there. She was 5'3". She weighed 115 pounds. Bang! Dead. Gone.
Who did this to this this man's daughter? Who did it? Why was this person out on the streets?
Why? Because Alexander Devontae Dickey, who was arrested 39 times, 25 felonies, was on the street. How about that? How good are we doing for our family? How good are you doing for your kids? He should have been in jail for over 140 years for all the crimes he committed. You know how much time he spent in prison? A little over 600 days in 10 years. He's only 30 years old. He was committing 2.65 crimes a year since he was 15 years old. But nobody could figure out that he couldn't be rehabilitated. Well, you'd have to put him in prison to see if he could be rehabilitated. Isn't that the idea of prison?
Democrats release these animals on purpose. Democrats release these animals on purpose because they want them to drag your daughter out of bed and shoot them in the head at the middle of the night. And good people still have such a hard time grasping that it's on purpose. You tell a Democrat that they should lock this guy up. You might as well be telling a grizzly bear standing in a river not to eat the salmon that's swimming by. It would never even occur to them to lock the animal up because they want him hurting people. We are dealing with evil, and they assume these positions of power as DAs and as judges so they can let these people out to ravage your mom, your wife, your husband, your son, your daughter. That is why they do what they do. Good people struggle to accept that level of evil. They are not naive. They are not soft on crime. These things are done on purpose. I'm going to play it one more time for you. The first one. I'm going to play it one more time because I want you to hear the pain in his voice, and I want you to know that Democrats do this on purpose.
When I tell you this story, think about your kids. Think about your child coming home from a night out with their friends, laying down, going to sleep, feeling somebody come in the room and wake them and drag her out of bed, naked, forced on her knees, with her hands over her head, begging for her life, begging for her hero, her father, me, that couldn't be there. She was 5'3". She weighed 115 pounds. Bang! Dead. Gone.
Heartbreaking, isn't it? Awful. But that's what we're up against. All right? That's what we're up against. And I got this email. Jesse, I took your advice and I traded Governor Murphy, that'd be Phil Murphy of New Jersey, for Governor DeSantis. I couldn't be happier. His name is Steve. So he moved from New Jersey to Florida. And the reason I read that is, if possible, get yourself and your family out of these blue areas because they're not sorry and they're not stopping. Your blue area is going to keep putting as many animals on the street as fast as they can possibly put them on the street. They are not dissuaded by that father's heartbreak. They're not dissuaded by bad headlines. They're not even dissuaded by the unpopularity of the Democrat Party, which on the issue of crime is now 20% behind Republicans. You can point all these things out to them, and they're still not sorry because they're communists, because they're demonic, because they are trying to destroy. They are fighting a revolution they look at as bigger than any daughter, as bigger than any son, any family, any cost. And remember, anti-humans, which is what communists are, as Solzhenitsyn called them, the enemies of humanity. For an anti-human, there's no such thing as human tragedy. It would be like you being, or you saying there's a mosquito tragedy. Have you ever been sad about the death of mosquitoes? No, you haven't. Their life means nothing to you. In fact, you despise them. That's how communists think about people. If someone has to die, even on their own side, by the way, if anyone has to die in service to the revolution, well, that's just the cost of doing business. Someone has to die, I guess. That's what we're up against. Let's change the subject a little bit here. Talk about something maybe a little bit lighter, maybe not. We'll do a couple emails, and we'll also talk about the younger generation in the real world. Apparently, they're kind of done with all this online dating stuff, but they find the real world to be a little intimidating, if you will. We'll discuss that in a moment. It is the Jesse Kelly Show on a Monday. Remember, you can download the whole thing if you missed a single solitary second. Jesse at jessekellyshow.com. So, I have a question. When describing jalapenos, do you ever shorten it to Japs? Chris says he does. Corey, do you ever shorten it to Japs? Corey doesn't. Okay, so maybe it's a regional thing. I have always, for as long as I can remember, called them Japs. And I get pepperoni and jalapenos on a pizza. We always call them Japs. Did you get Japs on there? If I'm getting a cheesesteak, I like jalapenos in it. I say, add Japs. This has been something I always understood. I just ordered something on Saturday in front of Ob, and I requested Japs, and she was mortified. She said, you can't say that. And I said, I don't understand why you can't say that. Because it's What, Chris? What? Oh, you'll type it, you won't say it? Maybe that's where I went wrong, as I actually said it. Look, the cashier got what I was saying. Everyone got what I was saying anyway. But let's get back to the topic at hand. Gen Z is over dating apps, but the real world feels even more daunting. That's from the psychological post or something like that. My only point in bringing up this clickbait article was this: human beings, for all of human history, have had to grow based on real world experiences. I'm talking about flesh and blood experiences. Whatever your culture is, you'll have different experiences. But as you have those experiences, you will grow. And people love these statistics and articles talking about younger generations now and how late they get married and how late they're having kids and how late they're owning a home and how late the question is always, what's wrong? What's wrong? What are they doing wrong? What happened in society? What this? And there's obviously these answers are all very complicated. I understand that. But a huge part of our problem now is the younger generations. They have been given an obstacle that no other generation in the history of mankind has had to deal with. And that's very rare, because normally human beings, we all kind of go through the same things at any period of time. The technology changes, but it's always the same stuff. Young people today have grown up in a world where you can exist for long periods of time without actually physically interacting with people. Because of social media, because of the internet, because of your phone, because of your computer, you can have a friend circle. And I'm not bad-mouthing your online friend circle. I know it's real. I get it. I'm not insulting it, but you can have virtually everyone in your friend circle online. You date now online, from what I understand. It was a little past my time, but you date online. And I'm not insulting any of that. But what's happening is you are missing out on experiences that will bring you further along in life by not physically experiencing them. And I know why why you might not want to do that, for a variety of reasons. One, online is easy, and online is, you don't have that feeling, that fear of humiliation. I know for dudes, and I know women go through this too, for men, being rejected by a woman. No, you can't have my number. No, I won't go out with you. That's a very real, very deep fear, and one women don't fully realize. Women have fears men don't realize too, but for a dude, it hurts your soul. It tears you down. And I'm not saying don't say no, ladies. Go ahead. But for a dude, that's a fear. You want to approach that girl in class? You want to ask for her number? That pretty girl at the park? Do you walk up, ask to take her to Red Lobster? What if she says no? So you can avoid all that pain. You can avoid any fear of that by hanging out online. Maybe I'll tell her she's pretty on there. If she says no, whatever, I'll delete her or something like that or whatever. I don't understand how all that online stuff works. But the result of that is younger generations are behind older generations with critical life experiences you need to advance yourself down the timeline. Does that make sense? And this is really a message if you're younger. I'm not saying get off social media. I'm not saying delete the internet. But I am telling you, you have to physically get out there. You have to. Ladies, got to get yourself dolled up. Go out to a local Republican meeting. You might just meet a guy, and you might not. Fellas, that pretty girl at the park. I know it's scary. I was a young man once myself. I know it's intimidating. Now, granted, I would talk to everybody. I didn't care, but I know it's intimidating. Go up and talk to her. You need to. What if she says no? Brother, it's good for you to hear no. It's good. These things help you grow. Otherwise, you'll find yourself 30, 40, and the real world will be daunting. The real world will be scary because you're 20, 30 years behind where your parents were. They were experiencing this in the 5th grade. Now you're experiencing it as a middle-aged person. Get out there and talk to people. All right. We'll talk a little bit more about Dearborn. We'll talk about entertainment, emails. It is the Jesse Kelly Show on a fantastic Monday. I know that you've already noticed the shirt that I'm wearing. It's a camouflage shirt, in case you're just listening to the show. It's a camouflage shirt. And maybe you're wondering why I would wear a camouflage t-shirt. Well, I recently went hog hunting, as I explained. The hog hunting from the helicopter. And I put camo paint all over my face to hunt hogs from the helicopter. My sons begged me not to, but I did. The crew of the helicopter or hog hunting crew informed me many times that it wasn't necessary, but I did it anyway because I believe in being tactical and blending in. I consider myself a camouflage expert. And I wore this today so you had an example of what it looks like to blend in to your surroundings. I didn't wear this for me. I didn't wear it just because it's the most comfortable t-shirt I own. I wore it so you could see what it looks like. What, Chris? What? Chris is questioning the camouflage pattern I have on. Part of camouflage, Chris, you can say this camouflage pattern doesn't work with the foliage around here. Part of it is zigging when you should be zagging. I'll wear desert camouflage in the deep woods. If I'm in the deep woods, I'll wear all white Arctic camouflage. Throws people off. They don't know what they're looking at. This is part of the spy game, Chris, that you've never understood. I'm trying to explain it to you, and you refuse to see the light. Corporate America is seeing the light. Headline, this is from Axios. Corporate boards hire white men at the fastest rate in years amid Trump's DEI purge. Now, let's clarify. This is from Axios, a filthy communist company. And it's not that they're hiring white men at the fastest rate in years, although I guess that's kind of true. People forget how unbelievably racist and bigoted this society became at the peak of the cultural Marxist movement in this country a few years ago. It's not only that corporate America would brag about not hiring white people. And remember, pause for a second. Every single time you see any institution brag about how diverse they're getting and how diverse they intend to be, that is an organization that is bragging about discriminating against white men. because diversity always excludes white men. It's an anti-white men thing. It's a priority on women or this minority group or that minority group. White men. It's open bigotry against white men. This campaign reached a fever pitch in recent years, and it got to the point they were printing articles bragging about the fact that over 90% of corporate jobs in this country went to non-white men. They weren't apologizing for it. They were bragging, look at all the whiteys we ran out of the workforce. Now, what's happening? Well, it has nothing to do, or precious little to do, with Donald Trump. What it has to do with is two things. There are two things that are happening that are changing this vicious racism. First, culturally, culture is more powerful than the president, than laws, than anything else. Culturally, America is slowly waking up and realizing how sick and evil and discriminatory this stuff is. And corporations, because culture's reversing itself, corporations are finally feeling more comfortable hiring whitey. That's one. And two, corporations, they're experiencing the fruits of their labor. Meaning, they're experiencing what happens when you discriminate against any group of people when you are hiring. If you artificially reduce the number of people in your employee pool, your company will get worse because you just tossed qualified people out before you even gave them a chance. So if you decide as a company, large or small, that you're not hiring this group or not hiring that group, your company is going to falter. Your company is going to fall. And it gets worse than that. This corporate racism against white men thing, it actually prioritizes oftentimes hiring the dumbest human being because the people handling the hiring process are often disgusting cultural Marxist commies themselves who will actually seek out the most filthy commie they can find and put them in your company, and you're sitting there patting yourself on the back because you get yourself a good ESG score, but the truth is you just made yourself, your company, and your employees poorer in the long run. Hire the most qualified person. I don't care if they're all white. Hire the most qualified people now and always. Jesse, remember you can email us, jesse@jessekellyshow.com. Are you a one-meat pellet smoker, man, or what? All we ever hear about is brisket, brisket, brisket. Are you able to smoke anything else? Not really. I can make cheeseburgers. I actually do a decent chicken. But I'm really ashamed to say what I'm about to say here. My boys are chicken freaks. Chicken freaks. They love chicken. They do not like it smoked. I know, Chris, isn't that, I'm so disappointed in them. I threatened to give them up for adoption. They do not like it smoked. I don't understand why. I love it smoked. I can smoke a chicken, but they don't like it. So I don't want to spend the money on buying a whole chicken if I'm going to be the only one eating the chicken. Also, I'm scared to do ribs. I have done ribs twice, and I have ruined ribs twice. One time, I ruined them so much. Chris, you better cover your ears, buddy, because this is going to hurt you. It's going to hurt you. I ruined a batch of ribs so badly, we had to take the entire rack and throw it in the trash can. Unsalvageable. Absolutely unsalvageable. We couldn't even justify picking it up and throwing it in like a soup or something. That's how bad it was. What, Chris? What? Chris said you couldn't scrape off all the black. Buddy, it was charcoal. There was nothing left. I want to be able to do ribs because I like a rib. I really like a good rib. And you know what I really like? Although I'm sure they're super expensive. I like those huge beef ribs. I don't know if you've ever, lots of people have had baby back ribs, but in Texas and in other places, but in Texas, if you find a really choice spot, you can get beef ribs. They're like the size of your forearm. And even Chris can eat them. And they are unbelievably good. But do you have any idea how much they cost? I don't want to risk ruining. I can't make them. I would love to. What, Chris? You said you're not barbecuing them. You're putting them in an easy bake oven, which one is rude. But two, with ribs, though, sometimes it falls off the bone, which I actually don't like. I want it soft and juicy, but I want to be able to, I want it on the bone. Yeah, I want it on the bone so I can have bites of meat off the bone. That's part of the joy of the rib. I don't want meat mush. I don't want to spend the money because I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, I like brisket because it's foolproof, especially when you're cooking to temperature. You throw it on there, you go get it off when it's done. It is the Jesse Kelly Show, final segment of the Jesse Kelly Show on a Monday, but we will return tomorrow, and the crappiest country in the world tournament returns tomorrow. India takes on Somalia. Don't forget, let your voice be heard. You get to vote on the show's Twitter page. Just look up Jesse Kelly Show. Go cast your vote. Chris, what is the vote looking like right now? I need you to go look it up. Is it what? Really? All right. I just found out someone has a strong lead. I'm not telling you. I want you to go vote in an unbiased fashion. One of the two countries tomorrow. As of now, look, we have 24 hours. As we find out in 2020, a lot can change in the final minutes of an election, but let your voice be heard. Go decide the winner goes on to the finals, right, Chris? Oh, this is the semifinals. The winner takes on the winner of Haiti and North Korea. All right, so our final four is Haiti, North Korea, and India, Somalia. Whew. It's going to be a war. Going to be a war. What, Chris? What? Also, these people, they continue to justify the violence against you out in the open. This is CNN.
Yeah, I'm pretty tired of conservatives gaslighting about the current political environment and Donald Trump's rhetoric when all of this escalation can be traced back to his entrance into American politics. His claim to fame was saying that Obama...
All of it can be traced back to Trump's entrance into American politics. Really? Why is that? Because the second Donald Trump entered the scene, the communists have been running violent operations in this country as a big revolution/protest movement. And this is what they do. And it's part of the reason they do it. You get elected, they start acting like animals, and then they say, don't you want it to stop? Why'd you get elected? He's not the first one who has said something like this before. This is part of how communists hold a society hostage. You better choose us. You better elect us, or we're about to go crazy. We're about to start wrecking things, hurting people, killing people over and over and over again. They say the same thing because that's what they're thinking. NBC's Law and Order SVU, I guess that's a TV show, portrays ICE agents as the villains protecting rapists and arresting NYPD officers. This goes back to what we were discussing. Communists use power, no matter what. They use power. They believe in using power, even if that power is just writing a TV show. If you're a communist right now, you know mass deportation is a threat to your revolution. And so you don't just sit down and try to write a good TV show. You sit down and try to do something that will aid, something that will protect the revolution. Now, let's talk about New York City for a moment. Because Mamdani is out here talking about what these free buses are going to cost.
Really, people who ask me questions about, is it possible to make buses fast and free? I say the cost would be about $600–700 million, which is less than Andrew Cuomo gave to Elon Musk 1 year in tax breaks of $959 million.
You can scream at these people all you want that it's not going to work. That's not going to work. Or that's too expensive. That's how they've been fighting against this free bus thing. Well, that's too expensive. He doesn't care if it works. He doesn't care if it's expensive. In fact, if you could hook him up to a lie detector, he would tell you right now, he knows it's not going to work. He knows it's going to bankrupt the place. That's what they want. They're just destroyers. In the end, they're just destroyers. One more before we get to headlines I didn't get to. And maybe an email real quick. Dearborn residents clash with city council over mosque's early morning call to prayer. I know this is going to be of little comfort to the people of Dearborn, Michigan. But once you get to the place where your town has a Muslim call to prayer several times a day, it's over. The time to stop that is before you mass import foreign cultures, before you mass import them. This is part of what the UK is going through right now. UK citizens, patriots, are angry, disgusted, but the people are already there. It would require possibly an actual civil war to fix the problem. You've got to mind the imports, or you can quickly find yourself in a bad situation.
And now,
here's a headline.
Go, you know the thing. Headlines we didn't get to.
Trump appears to strong-arm Netanyahu toward a Gaza deal. This is very similar to the Ukraine-Russia thing when it comes to Trump. And he knows this. I'm not saying anything he doesn't know. He sees it differently than they see it. Israel sees this as an opportunity to permanently remove a hostile terrorist actor on their borders. Trump wants it to go away, wants the killing to stop, thinks it's looking bad. They're at cross purposes. First cousin marriages has benefits, says the NHS guidance, despite birth defect risk. This is from the UK. I wonder why, given the changes in the UK demographics, I wonder why the government would all of a sudden start being promoters of first cousin marriage. Boy, I could almost put two and two together, but who needs that? Trump goes all in, tariffs up to 100% on foreign drugs, heavy trucks, and home goods. This is great if it works, and if it doesn't, it's a disaster for the Trump administration and for J.D. Vance in 2028. Trump's very popular on many things right now and will remain so unless, of course, life gets completely unaffordable for normal people, and then the communists may come back to taking power. Tariff stuff, something to keep your eyes on. Republicans urge Democrats to agree to a short-term bill to keep the U.S. government open. I still remain convinced the Republicans are going to cave on something to keep the government open when all I want is the government to close so I can finally be free. Please let this happen. Mike Johnson, don't screw the whole thing up again. Now you should know that we're coming back tomorrow, and I'm so excited for our crappiest country in the world tournament that I don't know if I'm going to be able to hold out to the second hour. So you better tune in the whole time. That's all.